Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Revamped Founder. In this episode, we have Jim Bisenius joining us. He's the founder and CEO of threesixfive.health, an incredible health tech startup solving a very major problem. The rest, I'll leave it up to you. So please do enjoy this episode. Thank you. So, hey Jim, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. Good to meet with you. Thanks for having me.
Yep, same here. Before we get into the main part, what can you give an introduction of yourself, the viewers or the listeners?
Yeah, I'm a technical founder. I previously founded singlelink.co, the open source Linktree alternative. It was acquired this past December, and now I'm the founder of a weight loss company called 365.
Yeah. So what does Linktree do? Like what did it do or what does it do?
Yeah, Linktree was a what we call a microsite platform. It allows
Mhm.
creators that have limitations on their social profiles. For example, on Instagram, you're only allowed to share one link. So Linktree would give you a page which could host multiple other links so that you could link to your latest content all from your one social media link. For example, a creator who might have a Twitter, an Instagram, a YouTube account, and a newsletter sign up, you'd want all of your followers to be able to see this content, but social media platforms only give you one link. So Linktree was a way to aggregate those links and put them up in your profile. And we built an open source alternative, which was censorshipless and easy to host on your own for free to this software that's in use by thousands and thousands of websites today.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So what does making it open source make a really big difference? Like for people to switch over from closed source product.
Yeah, I would say that in any industry, in any software industry at least, any piece of software that has a big enough impact is going to have some sort of open source clone. You've seen this with Calendly is being taken over with
Yeah.
cal.com
Yeah.
by Pierre Richardson and Bailey Plummet. Really amazing project. You'll notice that WordPress, right, is another open source alternative with WooCommerce to Shopify. And we kind of built after WordPress. And the reason this happens is because once technology gets mainstream, and technology usually starts off, the first innovation is closed source, right? Shopify being the first e-commerce platform, really. There are people in all sorts of areas, countries, who want to be able to access this technology, but they're unable to for a variety of reasons. Like Shopify was a great example. It has a $30 a month base price. And so people who are international, who may not have the funds to access this, or especially people who are in areas where content might be censored, or maybe Shopify might want to censor them, right? This centralized platform doesn't want to host the content that you want to use their platform for, which we saw a lot of with single link as well. For these individuals, open source makes a large difference, right? They simply would not be able to use this software otherwise. So I would say it makes a giant difference the second a technology reaches some sort of scale, the second industry reaches scale. Otherwise, functionality wise, there's not much difference besides the ability to self host that software, which I would say most users actually want to avoid, right? Most users don't like using open source software. It's more of a necessity than it is something they choose to use.
So do you think that with the introduction of Web3 right now, it will help in this, like abolishing censorship and all of these things?
Potentially. But I'm also worried that with Web3 coming in and you have incidents like SBF's
Yeah,
FTX, right? You
yeah,
you actually ruin the credibility that a lot of these open platforms have had.
yeah,
Even if, right, these are simply bad actors, there's not a lot of education around the Web3, around crypto, and around open source in general. And a lot of times they get blended together into one big bad bucket. And
yeah.
realistically, the industry is unable to point out bad actors as such. So I am hopeful, but I'm rather on the I think I traded the realistic side of that discussion, which is maybe not realistic, but more pessimistic, you could say, which is I'm not sure that crypto or Web3 has a positive influence on open source as of yet. And I'm not sure it will. But again, I remain hopeful.
So
I would love to
yeah,
see, like, I think crypto and Web3 reminds me of open source finances. I'd love to see that happen. Uh, but like I said, more trying to be realistic. And I'd also like to think that I'm not very educated about that space to make further comments either.
So, like, do you think that Web3 will have a positive impact on the world in the future and like will replace Web2 or something like that?
Maybe, right? But I don't know enough about it. I don't spend my time with
Yeah,
Web3. Anything I could say would simply be uninformed. It would be more of me, just kind of talking to talk.
yeah,
I don't have enough of an impact, or I don't have enough knowledge to be able to say whether Web3 is positive or negative yet. And I can
yeah,
also say that I don't believe I hold any crypto myself. So
yeah. But I think that it's still in its like infancy stage right now. It's in the
yeah,
beginning, like
yeah, totally in the beginning. And I think a lot of things take a long time to develop. Like I said, I'm hopeful. I think it does me no good to be pessimistic about any technology, but I'm just simply not enough. I'm not involved enough to make any sort of prediction on that technology. And like I said, I don't even hardly own any cryptocurrency. I might own like $50 off. I bought a Cash App at
yeah,
one point, but I just simply don't have enough interest in the space. And I mean, even with open source in regards right now,
yeah.
right? My focus is in startups. My focus is in primarily weight loss. I've been involved with weight loss for the past year, and that's really where I'm focused moving forward. So haven't taken the time much to step back and focus on open source or Web3.
Like, all right, let's leave this finance stuff. Let's move on. So, like, what is 365.health?
Yeah, so 365 is a weight loss service that allows users or to send us photos and we count your
Yeah,
calories for you. So
yeah,
users send us photos of all of their meals, and instead of like a service like MyFitnessPal where you potentially have to say, "Hey, I have a chicken. I cooked this chicken in butter and I use this amount of spices." You'd have to weigh that chicken. You'd have to include every ingredient you used when preparing your meal, your chicken, your green beans, etc. You'd have to count all the calories for those. Users same time with our service, they take a single photo and then a nutritionist texts them back calorie count, usually within 30 minutes.
so how does the nutritionist really calculate the calories? Like,
So it's not an
just a
exact
photo.
science.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, right, there's obviously going to be some inaccuracies when you take things out of the steps.
yeah,
Like you take away the ability to use a food scale. Not to say that some clients don't still send us photos of their food on food scales, etc. But it's a lot of eyeballing, and it's a lot of looking at the food and counting it the exact same way I counted calories. So I lost over 125 pounds previously using MyFitnessPal, and when I was counting calories, a lot of times I felt lost. So one of the things we do is, again, we analyze the food being sent to us. A lot of the times we've previously verified an entry that looks exact similar. So whether it's the same portions, etc. So based off that data, maybe we modify it a little bit based on the serving a little bit larger. We tend to use historical data as much as possible. The next step, right? If their food comes
yeah,
from a vendor like a restaurant or McDonald's, we try to look up and rely on them for nutritional information as much as possible. It's very easy for us to count the calories when people are eating out a lot, etc. And then finally, when people aren't eating out, they're eating at restaurants, right? Or not restaurants, right? They're cooking
yeah,
food at home.
yeah,
We just do our best, right? So we'll look at their chicken, we'll try to estimate size. We use the best
yeah,
ingredients that they'll send us. They tell us as much as possible, and we would count their calories as we would, right? So you can Google nutritional
yeah,
information about the several foods seen. And if we have any questions, we're not able to tell what a food is or give it a reasonable scale where I feel comfortable getting them within
yeah,
maybe a 10% margin of the calorie accuracy, then we'll reach out and we'll ask them questions. It's not uncommon that I'll reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, I saw your meal included chicken here. I couldn't tell how big it was. Could you give me an estimate?" Or, "Hey, what did you cook this in?" Or, "What brand was your bread for this?" Because all of those details matter when counting calories. And then there is a final step that does come after that. The USDA labels are often wrong for a lot of things, whether it's the serving sizes that are wrong provided in the USDA labels. A lot of time they're allowed a margin of error, or simply the fact that some calories aren't counted. Like you'll notice in net carbs, the fiber of foods does not attribute to the actual calorie count of the foods, at least the United States. So one thing we'll go
yeah.
back through is we'll do our best to correct those inaccuracies at the very final step before sending it back to the customer. So when using our service, hopefully you do get a little bit more accurate than you would be able to by as a beginner using MyFitnessPal on your own.
Are the nutritionists like in-house, or do you like get them when they're needed?
Yeah, so we have a flexible gig network of nutritionists. They're contractors. And I myself am also doing a lot of these calorie entries as an early stage startup, right? I love to get my hands dirty. And I also think I'm simply a great person to be doing these entries, having lost so much weight myself. I want to feel confident in the entries we're returning to people. So
Yeah, that's pretty good. So in a nutshell, like 365 is a health tech startup.
yeah, it's exactly right. We're a health tech startup that makes it easier for people to count calories.
So like uh talking about health tech, what is like which is one of the biggest like innovations which has taken place in the recent years, which you think that is incredible?
Hard to say.
Yeah,
I I like to think that our healthcare industry has rapidly evolved to the scale of responding to COVID. It's been an
yeah,
incredible past 2 years, but that's not necessarily health technology, right? That's just more of healthcare
yeah.
in general. Uh, I,
That's more of like
I,
biotechnology.
yeah, I really do focus more on things that prevent health issues. Like I want to focus on the step that before you need health technology, right? So like I guess one of my most amazing pieces of health tech I would consider, which isn't necessarily health tech, would be my car, a daily driver. I drive a Tesla Model 3. It I would consider saved my life, me and my wife's life about 2 years ago when we got hit by a semi. And I would say that's an incredible piece of technology. It's not necessarily directly related to your health, but the
Yeah,
safety of the auto industry is something that I've really been impressed by over
yeah,
the past couple of years. I would still say though that maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I really don't keep my head into other startups. It's great to see other people develop, and even my own competitors. Like I love to see the innovations that Calibrate's coming up with. They've recently kind of
yeah,
brought what's called the Hollywood weight loss drug, more popular, the GLP-1 drug, which although I haven't taken myself, I've heard good things about. So it's great to see anything that helps people lose weight coming into the industry. But realistically, I spend the majority of my time focusing on my startup and solving my own problems rather than thinking about what other people are doing. It's great to
yeah,
see, and it's all good for humanity, but
yeah,
there's not enough time in the day for me to keep up with every other startup in the industry.
yeah, for sure. Like it's important to prioritize your startup first and then like think about others or read about them.
Yeah. And I mean, I really wouldn't even say that I prioritize reading about other startups. When I consume content online, I do consume things about startups, right? I watch a lot of Y Combinator videos. I watch a lot of videos on door-to-door sales, etc. But more in the meta sense of watching startup content, right? I like to learn actionable advice on how to operate my startup and how to do better
Yep.
rather than looking at what others are doing. It can be easy to throw rocks at a glass house and say, oh, this company's good or bad, and but realistically, it does me no benefit. So
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty good. So like Tesla is like you mentioned, Tesla is really has really innovated a lot in the like pro protecting the drivers and the people in the inside the car.
yep.
So their tests are pretty like brutal on the car which they can.
Yeah, they've done extensive amount of testing, and
Yeah,
it's really great to see that at least one car manufacturer is caring so much about safety. I haven't kept up
yeah,
with a lot of what other car manufacturers are doing, but
yep,
I see news stories all the time about Tesla. Like most recently, there was, I believe, a father who drove his family off a cliff, which
yeah,
terrible to
yeah. I
see.
saw that.
Thankfully, it looks like everybody is at least gonna live.
Yeah,
So thank goodness for that. But seeing manufacturers that kind of design for the craziest of possible incidents is it's something to be impressed by, especially when they don't need to be doing it, right? Their car is already
yeah,
relatively affordable. Uh, if I was in their shoes, I'd like to think that I would be designing for safety, but realistically, it's hard to not constantly say you
yeah,
want to optimize for growth or optimize for margins, especially
yeah,
as a Tesla consumer. I know my car has tons of problems that I'm already upset about.
yeah,
So it's great to see them, albeit what I might say unnecessarily, prioritizing safety and not just bottom line safety, but
yeah.
safety to the extreme, right? Prioritizing use cases that most people would never consider.
It is really important.
Yeah. And I mean,
Like it's not.
especially,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry.
I was saying like it's not necessary for them to do that, but like you said, they do they do it. Like Even though it's not a compulsion to
Yeah,
take
yeah.
these amount of risk.
And it's not just that it's not necessary, right? But it may even
Yeah,
hurt their bottom line. I don't know about the
yeah,
amount of PR Tesla receives from this. I don't know if there's a net
yeah,
positive from the PR from them saving lives
yep,
versus the amount of cost that they probably spend in research and development and also product
yeah,
testing, trying to ensure their products are actually safety. I would be willing to assume that they're taking quite a bit of a net negative to do this. So it's really impressive that they kind of put that effort forward. Um,
yep.
Even though I hate a lot of aspects of Tesla, I have to applaud them there, especially because again, I'm here because of it.
Yeah. So, how many like customers does 365 have right now?
Yeah,
Any rough figure?
so we've got a couple customers in the trial, and you can check out our page at threesixfive.health. At the bottom, you could scroll down to open,
Yeah,
and you can see that we've counted over 120,000 calories. We've helped people lose a lot of weight,
yeah.
and but we're still relatively. We only launched the product as of November, so we're still under 10 users who are actually paying to use the product.
So it costs like $120.
Yep, it costs
Uh,
$119 a month. And we're probably going to be raising prices soon. So if you're interested in losing weight, if anyone out there is, go ahead and get your sign up in now.
yeah,
Because it is pretty expensive to do this right. That's one
yeah,
thing I was finding out. When I started off 365, I priced it at $30 a month. And I'm in a group called Founder U with Jason Calacanis.
yeah,
And he was like, "You're crazy. You need to be charging $400 a month." And
yeah,
after that, I went and I increased my price to 120. And the day after I did that, I got my first customer. When I called them, they immediately said, "I'm glad you increased your price because it looked sketchy before." So
yeah,
we cost $120 a month. And now that I've been doing this and I've tried to hire other nutritionists, I've realized that even at $120 a month, it's really hard to offer a good calorie counting service that's not at scale, at least. Maybe at scale when I have better technology to count calories faster, or the talent network I'm using is more affordable, right? Because right now I'd have to almost hire somebody full time to count their calories. I don't have enough meal volume to actually like give this to a giant fleet of people. It'd be more affordable. But right now, we need to raise prices in order to keep providing a high quality service that helps people lose weight. Because it's one thing to count calories; it's another thing to do it accurately. And when people trust you
yeah,
with their weight loss, it's not something you want to mess up, right? I would equivalent. It's like it's one of the most important things in their life. So you really don't want to misguide them, and especially the worst case scenario
or,
happens. Somebody ends up gaining weight when they follow all of your instructions. That's the worst possible
yeah.
scenario I could ask for.
In healthcare companies, it's a really big like risk from what I
Yeah,
feel.
it's a huge liability. And I
Yeah,
mean, part of it is it's not as huge a liability for us. We don't have to undergo FDA approval. We do only make recommendations on calories. So
yeah,
there's nothing we do that I guess directly affects the health of our consumers besides their own decisions. But at the end of the day, I still think that anything to do with a matter of somebody's health is worth getting right. There's no
for sure.
tolerance for lack of quality, especially when it comes to it's a profit decision, right? When I know we can get it right, when we can be accurate, and the only reason we wouldn't be accurate is because of either arrogance or profit. It's worth getting right every time. We
Yeah.
have to we have to do our best that we can to do that.
So like this thing is really important for companies which provide legal services and companies which provide health services, because
Yeah,
both are really big part of a person's life.
yeah,
Really important for.
exactly. And I mean, especially myself, I use services like Clerky. I'd be very upset if Clerky messed up my legal forms
Yeah,
and I ended up uh filing incorrect taxes or something of the sort. And as a MyFitnessPal user, right? I paid for
yeah,
MyFitnessPal premium for probably 24 months while I was losing over 100 pounds. I was very upset when I found out that my MyFitnessPal results were inaccurate. That was something
yeah,
that really frustrated me. It took me, I was losing weight and I got to a point where I was tracking every single food religiously. I was scaling everything. I was putting in the exact amounts there, and I kept stepping on the scale every day, and I wasn't going
yeah,
down anymore. And I'd already lost a lot of weight, so I knew it was nothing that I was doing wrong. And I kept sitting there going, "Man, what's going wrong? Why aren't I losing
yeah,
weight?" I watched one YouTube video and I learned a few things about net carbs and fiber and serving sizes and some of the rules with USDA labels. And it was a very
yeah,
frustrating experience, and it made me want to build a product that made weight loss far less miserable.
yeah. So do you think that in the future you will decrease or reduce the prices like a
Definitely
little bit?
increase the prices. Like I
Yeah,
I think there's an opportunity to deliver a product that costs well over $1,000 a month, and potentially people are happy to pay. Even people,
yeah,
I think the big name of the game is accessibility, right? Right
Yeah.
now, insurance services are not willing to provide any sort of compensation for weight loss
Sure.
programs in most areas, which means that the quality that you can provide as a weight loss service is severely diminished, or it's at least inaccessible to most people. And I would still advise that it's impossible to scale a very high quality business as is without any sort of insurance subsidies, right? If even the most luxurious customers are only willing to pay a couple $100s a month, if you look at like Jenny Craig, those services maybe charge $600-700 a month at the high end. If those are limited to the most luxurious customers, right, then realistically, how great of a weight loss business can you build? So I think for us, it kind of explores two things. Number one is how can we build the highest quality product possible? And then number two, after we've done that, it comes to accessibility.
Yep.
So our price is going to increase before it decreases. I do think there is a scenario where our price increases flat, but consumers see a decreased price, right? I would love for
Yeah.
consumers internationally to be able to use our product one day.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not feasible at $1,000 or even $100 a month
sure.
price point. So they're going to increase, but I think it goes with quality of care. And I also think that it sounds really expensive if you look at us as a weight loss app, right? But 23 million Americans and growing have tried to lose weight 10 or more times and failed every time. And obesity is an issue, especially somebody who's gone through this myself.
Yeah.
It takes on average 14 years of your life by having an obese BMI. So if this were to work, right? If 365 can deliver consistent guaranteed weight loss results, the price that you would put back on the years of your life it's very hard to put a price back on that. You get what I'm saying? I think the best thing we could do is focus on building product for now, though. The price will set itself once we're able to build a product that delivers those results.
Yeah. And like once you go international, you'll have to reduce the price. Because in India, like $100 is a lot.
And it's interesting you say that. We actually have some India signups, and we've had people who are willing to pay $120 a month from India before. It is expensive. I've definitely gotten pricing feedback in that regard, right? But I think the name of the game, again, comes down to insurance. Insurance companies need to take obesity as a serious issue. That's not something that's entirely user discretion. Like, especially somebody who grew up obese. I was obese far before I was 18. I was obese as a young child. To say that I had the ability to make the decisions on what I was eating at that age and to know what was right to eat and what was not right to eat is false, right? So the implication that I magically hit 18 and I decided to become obese and all those health negative effects are my fault, it's ridiculous, right? So insurance companies need to be willing to take more care. And not just more care, but non-surgical care, right? Because you are seeing that there are covering procedures like gastric bypass. They are sometimes covering medication, like Calibrate has a lot of patients qualifying for insurance for their GLP-1 medication, but they're not willing to cover non-medical approaches yet, which is especially frightening to me because as somebody who was obese, I think surgery and medication were my absolute last options. And I should be allowed to experiment in the non-medication zone for as long as I want without being penalized, especially since that's the least risky. Those are the least risky treatments possible. But insurance really doesn't support people like myself who weighed 300 pounds experimenting with calorie counting like so.
So, like, why would someone not just use like YouTube and other resources to read about all the nutritional values and all of those things, but rather use 365?
Yeah, so I think, especially when I speak with most of our clients right now, most of these are wealthy individuals, especially executives. They're between the ages of 30 and 55 years old, and they're using 365 because they don't have enough time in the day. Now, I want to repeat, there is absolutely nothing wrong with using services, finding your own knowledge. I would encourage everybody before you try 365 to go out, use YouTube to learn as much as you possibly can about calorie counting to get it right yourself. But the unfortunate fact is that there are millions and millions of Americans who are unable to get it right themselves. And 365 is right for those individuals, right? So if you find yourself going out, you do the research, you try to count calories on your own, you try to do this, right? You've tried your fad diets, those haven't worked for you, and you're still struggling. You've tried weight loss several times, it's not working. I would invite you to take a look at 365. I would invite you to give it one more shot. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the other approaches. I want to repeat that. But unfortunately, some people, they just don't work.
Yep. So like moving on, like I read on Twitter that you have a pilot's license.
Not quite yet. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
It's a fairly expensive process. So, especially as somebody who's trying to constantly invest in my startup, it's hard to constantly justify. It's like, well, do I want to send something out to all my customers? Do I want to build an ad campaign, or do I want to go on one more flight? Like that's a very hard decision to constantly make when it can cost upwards of $200 an hour to fly a plane, and it can take 40 plus hours to earn a private pilot's license. But it's been awesome up there. Being in the air is a really freeing feeling. I never thought I would fly a plane. I would encourage you, if you've ever thought of it, even if it really scares you, just to go do a discovery flight once. They cost about $100, and definitely it's a lot different being in the front of a plane than in the back. So it's a life-changing experience. I don't know if I'll get my full pilot's license. I would like to say I would, but more of a bucket list item than something immediately I'm prioritizing. Like I had to say, like I've got a kid I just had 5 days ago, so I'm a dad now.
Congrats.
I've got my startup. Thank you. I just had my last startup acquired. I'm extremely busy, so it's nice to have these kind of hobbies occasionally to come back to. But realistically, I'm heads down on everything in front of me. That's family and startup. So
like once you launch, what marketing channels are you planning on using?
Yeah.
For 365?
So right now, we've been launched for the past month, and what I've been doing primarily is in-person marketing, which sounds really crazy, right? You don't hear a lot of SaaS founders who are like, I want to go out in person and talk to people. But I think realistically, especially being LA, I have to lean into this. Like, we're the health capital of the country. We have Muscle Beach just south of me, about an hour south. Like, I have the opportunity to go out in public and I hold up a sign, I talk to people, and this works especially well. Like, this might not work for a business that was B2B and, really only targeted Series A plus founders, right? How many of those people are walking around in the street? But the United States, 50% of all Americans will be obese by 2030, right? So every single person that walks past me, or that I walk past, or I try to start a conversation with, every single door that I knock on, they either are obese or they know somebody who is struggling with obesity. And the chances are that one of those individuals has tried in the past to lose weight or is thinking of trying to lose weight again. So it's very easy. It's really affordable to me to start a lot of genuine connections by just walking around and talking to people, by knocking on doors. I have tried things like Google ads. I've tried Reddit ads. I've tried any general pay-per-click channels. They were too expensive for me to draw conviction, right? A uniform cost me $100. A nice sign cost me $20. I don't even need a nice sign. My first sign, I just got markers from Target I wrote on and walked out in public. So the return on investment is just much, much, much greater when I meet people in person. And not to mention, connecting with people it's much easier too, right? It's really hard to get a genuine connection, especially on such a sincere issue as weight loss online, right? It's very hard for them to feel like they can trust me. It's very hard for them to understand that I really care about their issue. Whereas in person, I can personally assure them I've lost over 100 pounds. I can sit down with them for 30 minutes and I could just listen to all their previous issues, and we could brainstorm ways to address them with 365. These are things that I guess you would say don't scale, right? Paul Graham's famous memo. But they're things that are really driving our business forward right now. I would say if we got funding today, which we're not raising, but if we were funded today, and if I were really stepping up on the gas pedal and trying to scale this thing, I would be putting money into a sales fleet to go door to door, potentially maybe retail space in some high traffic downtown areas, small, potentially probably pop-ups, not full-time retail space. But I would just be trying to create as many conversations as possible, because it is really easy to get people sold on weight loss here. Maybe even some billboards, right? But we're just out in public starting conversations.
So, like, for 365, do you think that ads would really help? Because for a company like this, which particularly deals in a really important part of a person's health, I don't think that people will trust ads, from what I think, my personal opinion.
I was just going to say that ads are tricky, right? We've used them and found some success. There are definitely people who have filled out our form to build a free weight loss plan from ads. At the same time, it usually can take multiple impressions, multiple retargets to get an ad to work for somebody. They can be really expensive for a startup, especially when we don't necessarily know the lifetime value of our customer yet. It's really easy to flip your CAC upside down, where you ended up spending maybe $500 per customer to acquire them, and your average customer is on for 3 months. you don't have that high of a margin, they end up churning, right? So even your revenue from that customer ends up being less than your customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
And not to mention your profit you actually take home from that, right? So I guess my answer is I don't know yet. I would love to experiment with ads. Most of my competitors, they run ad campaigns. I see Calibrate ad campaigns on my computer all day long. And that's great to see. I love seeing people getting more interested in weight loss. I love to see, again, just the world losing weight in general, getting healthier. But for us, like I said, I don't, they're not my immediate priority. I think they're not the lowest hanging fruit in marketing for us, right? They definitely could be done, but there are cheaper and more effective ways for us to start conversations and close deals. So I probably won't be experimenting with ads until we've used up the sales fleet, right? Until we've probably knocked on every neighborhood in Los Angeles, until we've gone out and we have salespeople covering every state in the United States. I don't know if I'll run that many ads. Maybe, again, like I said, I'll run billboards, things that are really cheap and allow us to reach the maximum amount of people. Maybe I could see us running some TV ads, just things to get brand awareness up so that, when we knock on their door, this isn't the first time they've heard of us. It builds some credibility. That'd be great. But extensive ad campaigns, probably not, especially not pay-per-click, right? If I did things again, they would just be brand awareness campaigns rather than pay-per-click. Because I love the authentic feel of getting to meet people and getting to help them, right? Because weight loss is not just about selling them a product. It's about helping somebody. And every product has to be different because everybody has a different weight loss experience. This is not a one-size-fits-all like a lot of companies' approaches are, right? When somebody like Twilio sells an API, generally the same API goes to every customer, right? With weight loss, that's not true at all. Every single one of our customers might have a different recommendation. They might have a different daily checklist to complete. They're going to send us different photos of food. We might need a different nutritionist to handle that. We have a lot of people who send us food from all over America. And frankly, I love my burgers and I love my hot dogs. I'm not very familiar with Thai food. So we might have a different nutritionist, look over the Thai food. So
like, just two more questions. Like, first, like, how do you manage your time? So many things on
managing
your
my
plate.
time. Yeah, I used to be a very disciplined person. I used to go to sleep every day at 8:30. I used to wake up at 4:30. I used to start my day with a 6-mile run, and then I would go to work. You get burnout. Like I love to say that I could do that again. I probably will as I start working on getting in better shape so that I could advocate stronger for my clients' health. It's easier to get in connection with somebody who's in better shape, and it's really hard to get in good shape without a routine like that. But right now, I'm ebbing and flowing. I'm riding the wave of productivity as I see it. I'm probably relying on motivation a little bit more than I should, and I probably should be leaning more on discipline. But with a newborn, it's very challenging to get consistent sleep patterns or be like, hey, I'm gonna go to bed at 8:30 and I'm gonna wake up at 4:30 and especially with a wife too, right? I'm recently married, and we have a lot of changes going on in our life as well, right? Especially with her health. She has some health issues that we have to go over, frequent doctor's appointments. She's actually unable to drive a motor vehicle, so I have to drive them pretty much everywhere and anytime they need to drive. I'm the Uber driver. So right now, I am being as productive as possible at any given equation at time, and I'm not beating myself up over when I need rest or when I can't be as productive as possible. There's no system, there's no task list. I guess sometimes I use like a Trello board, and I'll keep notes constantly. I'm constantly auditing my own time too. Like I'd say I'm probably a very big proponent of using screen time on Windows, or a lot of times I'll have a journal and I'll just write down everything I did for the past 30 minutes and I'll look back and be like, wow, I wasted today. Like I sat at the computer and I could have gotten these deals done and I didn't, and it makes me feel like a failure. So, but there's no system. It's just being the best I can be at any given time. And sometimes the best I can be is more than it is at other times. So,
That's pretty good. Like,
yeah, I guess
like
maybe the last thing is I lean
yeah.
on a calendar, but like obviously everyone's got a Google Calendar full of events. I can't not mention that, but outside of that, nothing big.
Like the last question, what message would you like to give to all the young builders, young founders out there who might just be starting out?
I think it's very, very easy to say, start scrappy, but dream big, right? Like when I started building 2 or 3 years ago, I was obsessed with building a $1 billion company. I was like, I'm not going to touch this small business because it's not going to be a $1 billion company. That was arrogant of me, right? But I am very, very, very glad that I was that ambitious. And now looking back, I don't think I would be where I'm at today without having that blind ambition. So I would advise people to do things that don't scale, right? Start small, start scrappy. Don't disregard that small business in your life that makes a paycheck come in seriously, because that might end up being your $1 billion thing. But then while you're doing that, continue to think big. Don't think if I could build $1 billion company. Think if I could build $1 trillion company. And then don't even think if I could build $1 trillion company. Think, what would it be if I could change the lives of everybody around the entire world, right? I have my sister ask me all the time. She's like, why do you want to build $1 billion company? And I tell her all the time, well, what would it take to get 1 billion people in an organized line to hand you $1? You would have to change every one of their lives tremendously. That'd be a very hard task to do. So think of how you can build something so immensely powerful to somebody's life that it makes them all want to get in line and hand you their money, right? That's a really inspiring thought for me. So start smart, small, start scrappy, but dream big.
That's kind of like, yeah, I love that 1 billion people example.
Yeah, it's you don't think of it a lot, right? But like when you think of how big these companies are, $44 billion company, $50 billion company, it's easy to like just look over that, and especially with the stock market swings going up and down every day, stocks are manipulated, etc. It's easy to see like, oh, this company is not doing that great, or it's doing great. But these companies help billions of people. They have changed the lives of billions of people. And so I would, again, think in terms of value. You can change somebody's life, and then after you change their life, it's probably ask them to pay you. So
Absolutely, like,
awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. This has been great.